Welcome back, lovely ladies. If you want to become the woman of your dreams, make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And join our Patreon for even more exclusive content. Now, let's dive into today's story.
Michael was home from school on a drizzly Saturday afternoon, pacing around the living room in baggy sweats and a faded t-shirt. At 18 years old, he was tall and a bit lanky, with short brown hair that flopped over his forehead. He had warm brown eyes and a thoughtful expression. His mom had asked him to clean out some dusty corners of the attic before the day was over. It was a chore he had postponed several times, but there was no more delaying it. Sighing, he headed upstairs and walked through the narrow hallway that led to the attic ladder. When he pulled down the creaky folding steps and flicked on the single naked bulb overhead, Michael was greeted by the usual musty smell. He climbed up carefully, ducking his head as he entered. He'd been in the attic several times before, searching for holiday decorations or rummaging for items in boxes. Usually, he just wanted to get in and out as fast as possible. This time, he had a mission. Reorganize some old trunks, stack them neatly, and toss out anything that truly belonged in the trash. It was late afternoon, and the daylight that filtered through the tiny attic window formed a warm, dusty shaft. Michael took a moment to let his eyes adjust. He saw mountains of boxes, some precariously stacked. A few chairs and frames, remnants of years gone by, were lined against the walls. His mom had told him to look for anything they could sell or donate. It didn't sound thrilling, but he was determined to finish so that he could salvage the rest of the weekend for himself. He started with the box closest to the ladder. Inside were old report cards belonging to his sister Emma, who was 22 now and had moved back home temporarily while finishing her final semester of college. He set them aside. He saw stacks of childhood board games missing half their pieces. Next, he rummaged through holiday decorations with tangled string lights and gold ribbons that had lost their shine. It was tedious work, so he turned on some music from his phone to fill the silence. After about an hour, Michael found a trunk pushed into a corner behind several other boxes. He recognized it by its peeling stickers from a family vacation. That trunk had belonged to Emma when she was in high school. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to pop it open. The latch was stubborn and let out a loud creak as he pried it upward. At first glance, it looked to be filled with clothes. He pulled out a couple of items, not entirely sure what he expected to find. Most of them were everyday shirts and skirts from years ago, maybe from when Emma was around his age. He came across a soft vintage dress, pale yellow with a gentle floral pattern. It had a high neckline, delicate lace trimming at the sleeves, and it looked like it might have been a hand-me-down from some older relative before Emma got it. Its style seemed a bit outdated, but something about it drew him in. He couldn't place why. Maybe it was the softness of the fabric or the airy design that reminded him of sunlight and open fields. A quiet thought nudged him, one he wasn't sure how to handle. He wanted to feel the material against his skin. Normally, he never gave a second thought to fashion or clothes, but this dress made him pause. He glanced around the attic, heart beating a little faster. No one's here, he reminded himself. It was just a curious urge anyway. Shrugging, he removed his baggy t-shirt, draped the dress around his shoulders, and slipped it over his torso. The fit was surprisingly comfortable, though a bit big in some areas. Standing under that single light bulb, he suddenly felt a different sense of calm. He pressed his hand gently against the lace. He looked at his reflection in the dusty mirror propped against a wall. The glass was dirty, but enough of his outline showed. He was tall, the dress ended mid-calf, and the color contrasted nicely with his brown hair. He stood there for a moment, uncertain what to make of his own reflection. He found himself smoothing the fabric as though trying to see how it fell along his form. Michael's mind buzzed with conflicting thoughts. This was something he had never pictured himself doing, not even in passing. Yet in that instant, it felt strangely natural. He decided, on a whim, to twirl once in place, letting the loose skirt flare out. When he did, it sent a little rush of excitement through him. The dusty attic boards groaned underfoot, and he had a fleeting thought. Maybe this was silly. Maybe he should fold it back up, pretend he never saw it, and finish his chores. That was the plan until he heard a voice coming from the attic steps. "Hello? Michael? You up here?" He froze in place, heart pounding. Emma appeared at the top of the ladder, pulling herself through the opening. She wore a pair of old jeans and an oversized sweater. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and she had that familiar, inquisitive look. The moment she caught sight of him in the dress, he panicked. His breath caught in his throat as he stood there, face growing hot. He didn't know how to explain himself or how to hide what he was wearing. Time seemed to slow. Emma's eyebrows arched in surprise, but she didn't burst out laughing or scowl at him. She stepped forward carefully, as though worried she might startle him. "Michael," she began, keeping her voice soft. "What are you doing?" He swallowed hard, tried to muster a response, but only a strangled sound came out. He braced himself for a snide comment, but Emma looked at him more with curiosity than judgment. "I'm sorry," he finally managed to say. I was just cleaning up here. I found some of your old stuff and..." He looked down at the vintage dress he had on. "I don't really have an explanation," he said quietly, tugging at the hem. Emma took another step closer and surveyed the trunk. Her gaze went back to him. "You found my old clothes," she said, nodding. "I haven't seen those in ages. You decided to try one on?" Michael pressed his lips together. "Yeah, kind of. I don't know what got into me." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Dust drifted in the narrow beam of light. Emma sat down on a large trunk, never taking her eyes off him. "You look okay," she said at last. "It's honestly not the strangest thing in the world. It's just a dress, right?" He felt relief flood him, though it was laced with uncertainty. "Yeah, I guess," he breathed. "It's just a dress." Emma made a thoughtful face and tilted her head. "You seem really nervous. Are you afraid I'm going to tease you?" "Maybe," he admitted. "I thought you'd laugh." She gave him a small smile. "You're my little brother. It's not my style to make fun of you for something that's clearly personal. If that's what you're into, it's not my place to judge." They fell quiet again, and Michael wondered if he should change back. But he lingered, letting the moment settle. It felt like a turning point he never saw coming. Finally, he tried to lighten the mood. "So, what brings you up here?" Emma rested her chin on her hand. "Mom asked me to bring down an old set of bowls. I told her I'd do it while you were up here. Thought I could help, but I see you're handling this in your own way." She gestured at the trunk full of clothes. "Did you find anything else interesting?" Her tone suggested genuine curiosity, not condemnation. Michael shrugged, kneeling down beside the trunk. "Just your old t-shirts, some jeans, this vintage dress." He patted the skirt lightly. "It must be from when you were in high school." Emma leaned forward, crossing her arms over her knees. "I got that one at a thrift store ages ago. It was a phase when I thought wearing old-fashioned dresses was cool. I guess I outgrew it. Never had the heart to throw it out, though. It's funny that you're wearing it now." Michael managed a small laugh. "Sorry if it's weird. I can change." "You don't have to," she said. "You do look comfortable." He noticed she didn't look away or seem embarrassed on his behalf. Instead, she patted the space next to her on the trunk. "Come sit for a second." Michael joined her, trying to ignore the flutter in his stomach. He still wore the dress, and the rustling of the fabric was a reminder of how unusual this was. Emma took a moment to choose her words carefully. "I know it might feel odd to talk about, but if you find something you like, you shouldn't feel ashamed. Clothes are just clothes, right? Sometimes we need to try new things to figure ourselves out." Michael listened, picking at a stray thread near the sleeve. He wasn't certain how much he wanted to share. Part of him still battled the urge to laugh it off, say it was nothing. But there was a pull inside that told him this was more than a random impulse. "I never thought about wearing anything like this," he said. "But when I saw it, I felt curious." He paused, searching for a way to convey that he wasn't sure of his own feelings. "It's not a big deal, I guess." Emma nodded, scanning his face. "You've always been a quiet kid. Even in your senior year, you mostly keep to yourself, focus on your classes, hang out with your close circle of friends." She paused. "If you want to explore this, you can. Don't let what other people might think stop you." He was grateful for her reassuring tone, though it made him feel a little exposed. He stared at the hem of the dress again. "Thank you," he murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "I appreciate you not freaking out on me." She bumped her shoulder gently against his. "Hey, if I did, you'd never talk to me again." They both laughed quietly. The tension lifted. Emma hopped off the trunk and reached into the box. She pulled out a floral skirt and held it up. "Oh, wow. I remember wearing this for my 18th birthday. It might still fit you if you wanted to try it on." She shot him a playful glance. Michael felt heat creep up his neck. "I don't know if I'm up for modeling your entire wardrobe," he said, his tone teasing. "But maybe I can see if there's anything else that's interesting." He carefully removed the vintage dress and folded it neatly, placing it atop the trunk. He put his t-shirt back on and rummaged through the other clothes. Emma pointed out a few items that had been meaningful to her. They discovered a denim jacket she used to wear all the time. She handed it to Michael, and he tried it on, smiling at how the sleeves were just a little too short for him. They shared a laugh about old memories and styles gone by. Eventually, Emma reminded him they still had tasks to do, so they spent the next hour properly sorting the clothes into donation piles, keep piles, and items to toss. Every now and then, Michael paused when he found another intriguing piece. Emma took note but said nothing, letting him set aside what caught his eye. Downstairs, their mom called them for dinner. Michael and Emma exchanged glances, both aware that they'd spent longer in the attic than planned. They crammed the last few items into labeled boxes and brought them down. The rest would have to wait. That night, Michael lay awake in bed, the attic encounter replaying in his mind. He kept thinking of that pale yellow dress and how strange and comforting it felt. He never anticipated that a garment could stir so many feelings. He found himself tossing and turning, wondering if this was going to be a fleeting, odd experience, or if it would lead to more questions. He eventually fell asleep with these thoughts swirling around, uncertain of the path forward. A few days later, Michael was back in school, trudging through the last semester of his senior year. The early spring weather made the air humid and thick, and he had soccer practice after class. As he walked the bustling hallways, he spotted his close friend Jordan by the lockers. Jordan was a year older, having turned 19 mid-senior year, a result of repeating a grade in middle school. He was a solid presence in Michael's life, calm, easygoing, and always ready to help lighten a heavy mood. Michael lifted a hand in greeting. "What's up?" Jordan shrugged, slamming his locker shut. "Not much. Coach wants us out on the field right away this afternoon. You got your gear?" Michael nodded, though his mind was still in a haze from the weekend's events. He tried focusing on small talk with Jordan, but he felt distant. He kept picturing that vintage dress in the trunk, and it took effort not to let his thoughts wander. During lunchtime, Michael ended up alone at a table by the windows, scribbling something in his notebook. He was sketching an outline of someone wearing a long dress. He wasn't the best artist, but it helped process the swirl of ideas. He quickly covered it with his arm when Jordan came over with a sandwich. "You good, man?" Jordan asked, taking a bite. "You've been kind of off today." Michael forced a small smile. "I'm good. Just got a lot on my mind. Senior year, tests, family stuff. You know how it is." Jordan peered at him, then shrugged, apparently willing to let the topic go. "Sure. Well, if you need to talk, let me know." "Thanks," Michael said, wishing he could open up more but not feeling ready. He couldn't exactly say, "Hey, I tried on my sister's dress in the attic and it felt comforting." That scenario seemed complicated enough to discuss with Emma, let alone a friend. The rest of the school day passed in a blur of lectures, group projects, and the typical rush between classes. After soccer practice, Michael drove home with an ache in his legs and the usual wave of exhaustion. His mom greeted him with a smile. He noticed Emma's car was in the driveway, and a quick jolt of nervousness hit him. Part of him was worried she might bring up the attic incident around their mom, but Emma was never careless with his trust. In the following days, Emma didn't bring up the dress. They shared normal sibling banter at dinner, teased each other over chores, but there was an unspoken understanding. The memory of the attic lingered in the air like a subtle hum, and though they didn't talk about it openly, Michael found himself wanting to revisit that trunk, to see the clothes again and gather more insight into whatever curiosity was simmering inside him. One afternoon, when his mom was out running errands and Emma was at a friend's place, Michael headed to the attic. The steps squeaked as he climbed up, flicking the overhead light on again. He found the trunk in its usual corner, now neatly stacked among the other labeled boxes. Carefully, he opened it, pulling aside the top layers until he found the vintage dress. He took a deep breath, half expecting it to somehow feel different, but it was just as soft as he remembered. The fabric brushed his fingertips, and he felt that same gentle pull. He looked around at the small attic space. The dusty mirror leaned against the wall. It felt oddly like a private sanctuary. After a moment's hesitation, he changed out of his t-shirt and jeans, stepping back into the dress. This time, it was easier. He recognized how it made him feel settled, though he couldn't articulate why. He stood in front of the mirror, letting the skirt flow around his legs. There was something about wearing it. He didn't feel silly or out of place, at least not in that quiet attic. Instead, it was like he could breathe more freely. He twirled once again, slower this time, and watched the fabric swirl. A low creak in the floor made him think of Emma's sudden appearance last time, but the attic was empty. He was alone, and the moment was entirely his. When he heard a voice calling from downstairs, he almost jumped out of his skin. Emma was home. Heart pounding, he carefully slipped out of the dress, folded it as neatly as he could, and returned it to the trunk. He pulled on his regular clothes and tried to appear casual. Quickly he scurried down the attic steps, shut the folding ladder, and turned to see Emma dropping her purse on a side table. "Hey," she said, giving him a curious glance. "Were you up there again?" He swallowed, cheeks flushing. Yeah, just wanted to see if there was more stuff to bring down." Emma studied him, but didn't press the matter. "All right, Mom said she's picking up groceries. She'll be back soon." Michael nodded. "Cool. Want help with anything?" She shrugged. "Maybe later. I'm just going to chill in my room." He let out a subtle exhale. He couldn't tell if she suspected what he'd really been doing. Then again, she seemed genuinely unbothered. Michael retreated to his bedroom, replaying the brief attic moment in his head. That weekend arrived with a surprising turn of events. Emma knocked on his door late Saturday morning, just as Michael was finishing a homework assignment. "Can I come in?" she asked. Michael spun around in his desk chair. "Sure," he said, closing his laptop. "What's up?" Emma opened the door. She held a small stack of folded clothes in her arms. "Can we talk?" He felt his stomach flutter with nerves. "Of course." She stepped inside, easing the door halfway closed behind her. "I found these when I was going through my college clothes," she said, holding up the stack. "They don't fit me anymore, and I was going to donate them. But I remembered how you seemed intrigued by some of the stuff from the trunk. I thought I'd see if you wanted to look through these first." Michael's mind reeled. He hadn't anticipated that she'd bring clothes directly to him. Part of him wanted to recoil and say no. Another part was undeniably curious. "What are they?" he asked. Emma placed the stack on his bed, then sat on the edge. "A couple of tops, a skirt, a lightweight jacket that I wore a lot in sophomore year of college. Figured maybe you'd be interested, or maybe not. No pressure." He studied her expression, searching for a hint of ridicule, but she looked earnest. "Why are you doing this?" he asked softly. She gave a small shrug. "Because I care about you, and I remember how I felt when I was your age, trying to figure out my style and not wanting to be judged. It's not easy stepping out of your comfort zone. If I can make that a bit easier for you, I will." Michael let out a breath. "Thanks," he said, reaching to pick up the top item. It was a simple gray t-shirt with a subtle floral pattern in the corner. "This one's not too flashy." Emma laughed gently. "Yeah, that's why I thought you might like it. It's comfortable and not super attention-grabbing." He set it aside, then picked up the next item, a plaid skirt that looked knee-length in a soft cotton fabric. "This might be a bit bold," he murmured. Emma shrugged. "Maybe, or maybe not. You'll never know unless you try, right?" They shared a small smile. He noticed a calmness in her voice, the same acceptance she had shown in the attic. She nodded toward the bedroom door. "I'll leave you to it. Just wanted to offer these. Keep them if you want, toss them if they're not your style." Michael nodded and watched her leave, heart feeling oddly full. He folded the clothes neatly, placing them in a drawer. For a moment, he stared at the drawer, half tempted to see how they felt. But he decided to wait, at least until he had the house to himself. That chance arrived sooner than he expected. Sunday afternoon, his parents left to help some relatives move into a new place, and Emma headed to the university library. Michael had the house to himself for at least a few hours. After finishing his chores, he found himself in his bedroom, eyeing the new clothes in his drawer. Finally, he closed his door, locked it, and took out the gray t-shirt. He changed out of his pajamas and pulled it on. The fabric was soft, fitting more snugly around the waist than his usual loose shirts. He glanced in the full-length mirror. The floral pattern at the corner added a gentle touch. It felt unusual, but not in a bad way. Next came the plaid skirt. He hesitated, then slid it on. The waistband rested around his hips, and the length came just above his knees. He studied his reflection, noticing how slender his legs appeared. At first, he felt a twinge of embarrassment, but as he stood there, letting himself get used to it, he felt that subtle sense of peace again. The mirror showed him a tall, somewhat gangly figure in a skirt and a patterned shirt, brown hair needing a trim. There was no striking transformation, just a quiet moment of feeling at ease. He paced around his room, noticing the new sensation of air around his legs, the swish of fabric when he moved. He decided to walk downstairs and grab a glass of water, just to see what it was like to move about in these clothes beyond his bedroom. At first, he was hyper-alert, worried about someone coming home unexpectedly. The house was quiet, though, and he made it to the kitchen without incident. Pouring water from the filtered pitcher, he caught his reflection in the microwave door's faint, darkened surface. He looked calm. He took a sip, leaning against the counter, letting the moment sink in. Eventually, he returned upstairs, changed back into his sweats, and neatly placed the t-shirt and skirt in a drawer. Part of him felt a little strange, but he also recognized that it was comforting, even if he had no idea what direction this might lead. Over the next few weeks, Michael's routine continued. School, soccer practice, time spent on homework. His interactions with Emma felt warmer than before, as though they shared a quiet understanding. But outside the house, he was still the same Michael everyone knew, reserved, polite, and somewhat introverted. On a sunny Saturday, Emma suggested the two of them grab lunch together at a small cafe downtown. Michael was surprised by the invitation, but she insisted. "I feel like we never hang out one-on-one," she said. "Might be nice." So they hopped in her car, windows rolled down to let in the warm spring air. Music played softly as they drove. The cafe was a cozy place with potted plants in the windows. They took a seat by the large glass pane overlooking the street. It wasn't crowded, so they had plenty of space to talk. After placing their orders, Emma leaned back in her chair. "How's everything going? Final exams are coming up, right?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, it's stressful, but I'm managing. Just trying to finish strong. I can't believe I'll be done with high school soon." She smiled. "Time flies, doesn't it? I can remember being in your shoes, thinking it was such a huge milestone. It is, but there's so much more after." He sipped his iced tea. "True. I'm excited to be done with all the high school drama. College is going to be a fresh start, I guess." Emma tapped her fingers on the table. "You're probably applying to the local college, right?" Michael nodded. "That and a couple of others." She offered a thoughtful nod. "Well, let me know if you need any pointers." She hesitated, then lowered her voice a bit. "So, about the clothes I gave you, how do you feel?" Michael's heart skipped. He glanced around to see if anyone was listening, but the cafe was mostly empty. "They're nice," he said softly. "I tried them on a few times. It's different." Emma met his gaze with sincerity. "Have you thought about wearing them outside the house? I mean, not necessarily where all your friends could see. Maybe just a late-night walk or something like that?" He fiddled with his straw. "I'm not sure if I'm ready for that." She nodded, looking understanding. "Yeah, it's a big step. No rush. I was just curious." They changed topics, drifting back to family talk. She teased him about his messy bedroom. He joked about her intense coffee habit. Their food arrived, a panini for Emma, a chicken wrap for Michael, and they both dug in. It felt good to have a normal conversation, unaffected by the attic secret. At one point, Emma caught him staring out the window at a couple walking by, both wearing bright, colorful outfits. She followed his gaze. "They seem comfortable in their style," she commented quietly. "Yeah," Michael said. "It's nice to see people who don't seem to care what others think." Emma reached across the table and rested her hand on his. "You'll find your way," she said gently. He felt a lump in his throat. Though he didn't fully understand this path, it helped to know she was on his side. That evening, Michael found himself in the attic again, rummaging for some old notebooks. He was looking for a large sketch pad he remembered storing there. While searching, he found the trunk once more. He lifted the lid and noticed that the vintage dress was still neatly folded inside. He brushed his fingers along the soft fabric, feeling a small surge of warmth. He decided to lift the dress, hold it against himself. He stood there for a while, just thinking back to that first time. The memory brought a faint smile. A sudden voice broke his thoughts. "Nostalgia?" Emma's tone was amused, but not mocking. She'd climbed up the attic steps quietly, something she was apparently good at. Michael nearly dropped the dress. "Oh, hey," he stammered, carefully setting it back in the trunk. Yeah, just looking for something. Emma came closer, glancing down at the dress. I see you still have a soft spot for that one. Yeah, I guess so, he admitted, feeling a wave of embarrassment. I liked the way it made me feel. Emma leaned against a stack of boxes. You know, I used to wear that dress whenever I felt out of place. It was like my little security blanket. Funny how it ended up appealing to you, too. He swallowed. I never knew that. Did you feel weird wearing it? She shrugged. Sometimes, but I also felt like it gave me a bit of confidence, ironically. Probably because it was so different from what everyone else wore, so I felt unique. He nodded, still standing by the trunk. Do you think I could have it? Or is that too weird? Emma's face softened. Of course you can. It's basically yours now. She placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm happy it makes you feel good. Michael managed a small grin, hugging the dress to his chest. Thanks, he said quietly. They heard their mom calling them from downstairs, so Emma nudged him. Come on, let's go see what she wants. He folded the dress and carefully laid it over his forearm. I'll be right down, he said. Emma nodded and headed for the steps. For a brief moment, he stood in the attic alone, glancing at the trunk's contents. He noticed other items Emma had left behind, some old scarves, a pair of boots too worn to be wearable now. It struck him how this trunk was a piece of her history, and now it might become part of his own. He walked downstairs and tucked the dress in the back of his bedroom closet, keeping it safe and out of sight. The following week, there was an unexpected shift at school. Michael was usually the type to keep a low profile, but he started to feel restless. He caught himself glancing at classmates who experimented with their looks. One day, he complimented a girl in his English class on her hair color, which was newly dyed a vibrant blue. She thanked him with a bright smile, and he realized that it felt nice to notice and appreciate individuality. During a free period, he sat in the library, going over some notes for his history test. After a while, he got up to stretch his legs, wandering through the shelves. He paused in the art and fashion section, scanning the spines of magazines and books, thinking about style in a broader sense. He felt a twinge of apprehension, worrying someone might see him browsing topics he never touched before. Still, he slid out a small book on classic clothing pieces and began flipping through it. The pages showcased different garments, their histories, and their influences on culture. A portion talked about how certain items once considered exclusively for one group eventually became mainstream for others, highlighting how personal presentation can evolve over time. He found it fascinating, though he closed the book quickly when another student passed by, worried about being judged. Later that day, while walking to his car, Emma texted him to pick up some groceries on his way home. He swung by the store, grabbed what was needed, milk, bread, a few snacks, and headed home. After putting things away, he retreated to his room, feeling mentally exhausted from the day. He flopped onto his bed, stared at the ceiling, and eventually let his gaze drift to the closet door. He got up and cracked it open, gently lifting that vintage dress from its hanger. The floral pattern looked a little faded in the overhead light, but it was still charming. He laid it on the bed, thinking about the leaps he'd made in just a few short weeks. If someone had told him a month ago that he'd be trying on these clothes in secret, cherishing how they made him feel, he would have never believed it. One Friday evening, Emma came home to find Michael in the living room, flipping through channels without much interest. She plopped down on the couch next to him. "So, I'm going to meet a friend for coffee in about an hour," she said. "Want to come along? Maybe we can do a little thrifting afterward." He raised an eyebrow. "You want me to come?" She shrugged. "Yeah, my friend's cool. You'll like her. And I know a small thrift shop nearby that might have neat stuff. You might see something that catches your eye." even if it's just for fun. Michael's pulse quickened. Part of him wanted to go. Part of him was nervous. In the end, curiosity won. "Sure," he said, turning off the TV. "Let's do it." They drove to a coffee spot that Emma frequented. The shop was bustling with college students hunched over laptops. Her friend, a fellow student named Lisa, was waiting by a window table. She was in her early 20s, wearing black leggings and a worn-out hoodie. She greeted Emma with a hug, then smiled at Michael. "I've heard a lot about you," Lisa said cheerfully. "Finally nice to meet Emma's little brother." Michael flushed slightly. "Nice to meet you too." They all grabbed drinks, found a small table, and chatted. Lisa asked Michael about high school, his interests, if he was excited for graduation. Emma steered the conversation in light directions, careful not to make Michael uncomfortable. Once they finished their coffees, Emma led them down a few blocks to a thrift store with an unassuming storefront. The bell jingled as they entered, revealing racks of gently used clothing, from t-shirts to formal dresses. The air smelled faintly of lavender-scented disinfectant. The aisles were cramped, but well organized by category. They separated, each browsing different sections. Michael drifted toward the men's hoodies at first, flipping through them out of habit. After a few minutes, he found himself meandering over to the women's sweaters. He ran his fingers over a soft burgundy sweater that looked about his size. He glanced around, feeling self-conscious. Emma was a few racks away, examining a denim jacket. Lisa was across the store, trying on a hat in front of a mirror. The store clerk, an older woman with reading glasses, paid him no attention. Taking a breath, Michael lifted the sweater off the rack, holding it up to examine. It was a simple design with a loose neck, maybe a bit oversized. He tried to imagine wearing it around the house. Emma ambled over, noting the sweater in his hands. "That's a nice color," she remarked quietly. She didn't comment on the fact that it was in the women's section. She just nodded, as if he were checking out any normal piece of clothing. He mustered a small smile. "Yeah, I think so too." She gestured to the dressing rooms in the back. "They have some changing rooms if you want to see how it fits." Michael hesitated. The idea of trying on an item like this in a public place made his stomach twist. "Maybe I'll just buy it and try it on at home," he said finally, looking away. Emma gave him a reassuring nod. "Sure, whatever you're comfortable with." He ended up buying the sweater, along with a plain black t-shirt Emma spotted that she thought might suit him. It was all fairly inexpensive, so he didn't feel too guilty. Lisa teased him playfully for not finding anything funky, but he could tell she was just having fun. Later that night, after Lisa parted ways, Emma and Michael returned home. He headed straight to his room with the thrift store bag. The house was quiet. Their parents were asleep. In the privacy of his room, he tried on the burgundy sweater. It was a warm, relaxed fit, with sleeves that extended just a bit beyond his wrists. Gazing in the mirror, he felt that same quiet sense of contentment. He decided to wear it for the rest of the night, just while he was on his computer winding down. When he walked out to the hallway to grab something from the kitchen, Emma glimpsed him wearing it. She flashed him a supportive smile and continued on her way without a word. As the weeks went on, Michael found small ways to explore these new feelings without drawing too much attention. Sometimes he'd wear a piece of Emma's old clothes around the house late at night. Other times he'd take that vintage dress out just to hold it. Though he hadn't worked up the courage to wear such items in public, even small steps felt significant. His bond with Emma grew stronger than ever. She was discreet, never pushed him too hard, but always offered a listening ear. One day, though, his mom walked into his room unannounced. He was kneeling by his dresser, placing the plaid skirt under a pile of t-shirts. He heard the door open but had no time to hide it fully. When he turned, His mom was standing there with a basket of laundry, eyes flicking to the skirt. His stomach plummeted. She blinked, confusion crossing her features. "Michael, what?" He scrambled for an explanation, mind racing. "Mom, this is just some old clothes Emma gave me. I was helping sort them." She looked uncertain, setting the laundry basket on his bed. "Gave you? But those are—" He braced himself for a barrage of questions. Emma chose that moment to appear in the hallway. "Hey, Mom," she said, stepping into the room quickly, face calm. "Oh, yeah, I gave him some clothes to donate. We were going through a bunch of stuff I didn't want anymore, and Michael volunteered to drop them off." Her quick thinking sent relief coursing through Michael. He nodded, forcing a casual smile. "I haven't gotten around to dropping them off yet," he explained. His mom still looked slightly puzzled, but she seemed to accept the explanation. "All right," she said, patting the laundry basket. "Well, I brought you some fresh towels. Just be sure to put the donations in a bag soon so it doesn't clutter your room." "Sure, thanks," Michael said, exhaling inwardly as she left. Emma gave him a small grin. "Close call," she whispered once their mom was out of earshot. "Next time, maybe lock the door." Michael sighed and slumped onto his bed. "Yeah, definitely." He was grateful Emma had stepped in with a plausible excuse. Still, the incident reminded him that keeping this hidden could be tricky. For now, though, the status quo remained. As the final months of senior year rolled on, Michael was neck-deep in studying for exams and preparing for graduation ceremonies. On a warm evening, Emma knocked on his door yet again. When he opened it, she had something folded in her hands. She gave him a half smile. "I wanted you to have this," she said, holding it out. Michael took the bundle, unfolding it to reveal a bright, flowy kimono-style wrap. The pattern was an intricate design of blues and greens with subtle gold accents. It was lightweight and silky. He raised his brows. "Where did you get this?" "It's from a trip I took last year. I bought it at a local boutique. I used to wear it around campus, but now I think you might enjoy it." Michael was touched. "Thanks," he murmured. He ran a hand over the material, marveling at how it caught the light. "It's really nice." Emma shrugged casually, but she looked pleased. "Try it on if you want." He hesitated, but then slipped it over his t-shirt. The flowing sleeves hung loosely around his arms, and it felt airy. He caught a glimpse of himself in the wall mirror. It wasn't a typical piece you'd wear outside, but in the privacy of his room, it felt special. Emma studied him with a fondness in her gaze. "Looks good," she said softly. "It suits you, you know. Not just your coloring, but it feels like you." Michael felt a ripple in his chest, a mixture of warmth and gratitude. "Thank you," he said again, voice slightly hoarse. They stood for a moment in comfortable silence. Then Emma clapped him on the shoulder. "By the way, Mom's making dinner soon. You want to help chop veggies?" He chuckled. "Sure," she winked. "Cool. And hey, don't spill tomato sauce on that thing, or I'll come after you." Michael laughed, carefully setting the wrap aside before following her downstairs. Graduation day arrived with bright sunshine and the smell of freshly cut grass on the football field. Michael wore the standard cap and gown, lined up with his classmates on the bleachers as families filled the stands. Emma, his mom, and his dad were in the audience. When Michael's turn came to walk across the stage, he felt a surge of accomplishment and a flutter of excitement for the future. After the ceremony, he spotted Emma among the crowd, clapping and waving at him. He jogged over to where she stood with their parents. She congratulated him with a big smile, pulling him into a hug. "Proud of you," she said, almost misty-eyed. They took pictures, laughed at inside jokes, and celebrated with the rest of the graduating class. Later that evening, the family went out for a celebratory dinner. Michael's thoughts kept drifting to how close he and Emma had grown in these last few months. That night, back home, he found Emma in the living room, flipping through channels. He sat beside her, still dressed in the shirt and slacks he'd worn under his gown. He cleared his throat, and she muted the TV. "Thanks for everything," he said softly. She nodded. "Of course you don't have to thank me. That's what sisters are for." He tapped his foot on the carpet, unsure how to say what he felt. "I just mean, you've been really supportive with everything. The clothes, my questions. I appreciate it. I know I can be a bit guarded." Emma turned to face him. "Michael, I'm really proud of you. You're finishing high school, stepping into the next phase of your life. You're exploring new things, and that's brave in its own way. I hope you keep going. Figure out what makes you feel the most like yourself. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just keep going." He smiled, letting the comfort of her words sink in. Summer drifted in with warm winds and longer days. Michael had a part-time job lined up at a local bookstore, which gave him plenty of time to flip through magazines during breaks. One afternoon, he was stocking shelves when he came across a section with clothing catalogs. He found himself drawn to the pages showing different styles, not just standard outfits, but more creative designs. He discovered that he liked the idea of mixing and matching clothing traditionally labeled for different groups. It opened doors he didn't know existed. At the end of his shift, he bought one of the thrift-style catalogs to take home, hidden among a couple of novels. That evening, as the sun set and the house was quiet, Michael flipped through the catalog in his bedroom. There were people wearing loose-fitting pants with tailored blazers, some wearing layered skirts with tough-looking boots, others wearing flowing tops with simple shorts. It reminded him of how clothing could be an art form. He recognized a tug inside. Perhaps he wanted to find a style that resonated with him, blending different elements in a way that felt uniquely comfortable. He sighed, setting the magazine aside. For now, it felt like he was in a transitional space, not quite certain of the next step. But he was learning more every day, thanks to Emma and the quiet time he spent exploring his wardrobe. One quiet Sunday, Emma invited Michael into her room. She had a pile of clothes she was sorting through, deciding what to pack for her eventual move once she finished her degree. The space smelled faintly of vanilla perfume, her laptop was playing some mellow music, and the late afternoon sun streamed through pale curtains. She gestured for Michael to sit on her bed. "So I'm moving back to campus at the end of the month," she said, half distracted as she folded some clothes. "I won't be far, but I won't be around every day." He nodded, sadness tugging at him. "I'll miss having you at home, but I get it. You're about to start your next chapter too." She gave him a gentle smile. "Right, and I've got something for you." She reached for a small box on her desk. "Remember how I said I had a few favorite pieces I'd be willing to pass on? Well, I was waiting for the right time to give them to you." She handed the box over, and he lifted the lid. Inside were a few folded items: a silky scarf with a subtle geometric design, a lacy short-sleeved blouse, and a pair of simple ballet flats that might just fit his feet. They were understated, not overly flashy, but they were definitely from Emma's old favorites. Michael's eyes widened. He set the box down carefully, picking up the scarf first. "This is really nice," he murmured, running his thumb over the design. Emma smiled warmly. "You can incorporate it however you want. Tie it around your neck, use it as a belt, or put it in your hair if you ever want to. It's versatile." He nodded, feeling that warm sense of gratitude flare up again. "Thank you," he said, voice trembling slightly. "It means a lot. These are your favorites, right?" "Yeah, but I want you to have them. Maybe you'll discover something with them. I'm not sure how to explain, but I think you should have these pieces for whenever you're ready." He blinked, touched by her gesture. "You're the best," he said, half in jest, but also serious. She laughed softly. "I try." They both turned their attention to packing up some of her other clothes. While they worked, they chatted about random things, upcoming TV shows, friends from Emma's college, memories from their childhood. Time passed easily, and soon Emma's room was tidier, half-packed boxes lining the walls. Before Michael left her room, he glanced at the box she'd given him. "I'll take good care of them," he promised. "I know you will," Emma said, and the look in her eyes was understanding. Summer days rolled on, filled with part-time work and quiet evenings. Michael began experimenting with the new pieces Emma had gifted. Sometimes he'd try the blouse after his shower, pairing it with jeans just to see how it felt. The ballet flats took some getting used to, as he realized his bigger feet made them snug. But Emma had chosen a size that, while tight, still fit. He found solace in the private rituals of checking himself in the mirror, layering outfits in small ways, seeing how different clothes changed his silhouette. He still wasn't ready to wear them openly, but the knowledge that they were his, that he could explore them when he felt like it, provided a sense of comfort. Eventually, Emma's final move-in day arrived. She loaded her car with boxes, and Michael helped her carry them. Their parents came along to help settle her into a small off-campus apartment. By the evening, the place was cluttered with half-unpacked suitcases, but they managed to get the essentials set up. When it was time for everyone to say goodbye, Michael lingered. Emma walked him to the door of her new place. "Hey, don't be a stranger," she told him, giving his shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Come visit any time." He nodded, feeling a knot in his chest. "I will. Thanks again for everything." Emma tucked a stray hair behind her ear. "No problem. Take care of yourself, okay?" "I will," he said. "Promise." She pulled him into a quick hug. Her sweater smelled like the vanilla perfume he'd always associated with her. He stepped back, offering a small wave as he left. Driving home that night, he felt a mixture of pride and sadness. His sister was forging ahead with her life. He was heading into his own new chapter. And through this, they'd forged a bond he never thought possible. 1 week later, Michael rummaged through his closet, pulling out the vintage dress he'd stowed away. He laid it on his bed, alongside the blouse and scarf from Emma's gift box. With careful consideration, he decided to see if he could mix and match. He slipped into the vintage dress, then wrapped the scarf around his waist like a sash. The combination of old and new felt unique. He looked in the mirror, turning to see the swirl of the skirt, the accent at his waist. Something about it clicked in his mind. He set out his phone's camera on a timer, propping it against a stack of books. Standing back, he posed awkwardly, capturing a quick photo. It wasn't for social media. It was for himself, a reminder of who he was in that moment. He reviewed the photo, noticing the nervous curve of his mouth, the tilt of his shoulders. It wasn't a polished look, but it resonated with him. Later that evening, Emma sent him a text asking how he was doing. Impulsively, he decided to share the photo with her. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the send button, heart pounding. Finally, he sent it. His phone buzzed soon after. Emma's reply came in. "You look awesome. Love the scarf with that dress. So proud of you." Michael exhaled a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He felt something shift inside, a mixture of relief and gratitude. She liked it. She supported it. And that was enough. Summer neared its end, and the day came for Michael to start orientation at the local college he'd chosen. He threw himself into campus tours, scheduling classes, and meeting new people. The swirl of activity was both exciting and overwhelming. Though he still wore traditional clothes in public, that trunk in the attic and Emma's gifts at home remained a quiet reminder of another facet of his life. One late afternoon, after returning from orientation events, he found a small package in the mail with Emma's familiar handwriting. Inside, there was a neatly folded floral blouse, along with a note. "Saw this at a boutique sale, thought you might like it. Keep being you." He smiled at the short message. Laying the blouse on his bed, he realized how far they had come since that day in the attic. Back then, he stood frozen in that vintage dress, bracing himself for ridicule. Instead, his sister had taken the time to understand him. Her choice to share her own stories of individuality had opened a door he never knew existed. It became a new form of expression, quietly woven into his everyday life. He placed the blouse gently in his dresser, alongside the other items that were now dear to him. Their bond had shifted from typical sibling banter to a deeper connection built on trust and respect. Whatever the future held, he knew he wasn't alone in navigating it. Emma had shown him that sometimes the simplest gestures, like sharing clothes or a kind word, could remind someone that they deserved to feel at home in their own skin. A few days later, he texted Emma a picture of the new blouse paired with a pair of dark jeans. She replied with enthusiasm. They exchanged a few jokes, and he realized how fortunate he was to have a sister who offered guidance without judgment. The hot sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky pink and orange on Michael's last free weekend before his college classes began. He found himself with a rare evening alone at home. His parents were visiting friends, and Emma was busy settling into her apartment. After dinner, he went upstairs and rummaged through his dresser. He selected the floral blouse Emma had just sent him, pairing it with the plaid skirt from earlier. He also slipped on the ballet flats, ignoring the slight pinch at his toes. Looking at himself in the mirror, he felt a surge of emotion. For a second, he remembered that first day in the attic, how nervous he'd been, how unexpected it all was. Now, he was on the brink of entering college, his sister living away from home, and he had an assortment of clothes he never would have imagined owning. Standing there, he felt the quiet sense of comfort that wearing these garments brought. Downstairs, he turned on a soft lamp in the living room, leaving the overhead lights off. The hush of the house made it feel like a different world. He found a gentle playlist on his phone and let the music play softly through the speakers. He moved around the room, tidying up small items, feeling the skirt sway with each step. There was no audience, no pressure, just the hum of his own presence. He walked to the hallway mirror and gave himself a long look. He was an 18-year-old, soon to be a college freshman. Brown hair that needed a slight trim, a thoughtful expression, and a taste for something unconventional. The raw truth was that life could be confusing, but at least he had one person he trusted implicitly, who had gifted him not only clothes, but a safe space to explore a new dimension of himself. A light breeze came through the open window, ruffling the blouse's sleeves. He took a final twirl, arms outstretched, letting the skirt flare one more time, a quiet echo of that first spin in the attic. Then he sat on the couch, content with the realization that he had a sister who saw him, truly saw him, and who offered him bits of her own journey as a way of saying, "It's okay to find your own way." Eventually, the front door opened, and his parents' voices carried into the house. Michael stood up quickly, heart pounding, a touch of that old anxiety flooding back. He darted up the stairs, swiftly changing into his regular clothes before they could see. There might come a time when he'd share more with them, but that night wasn't it. Still, as he drifted off to sleep in bed, the memory of his private moment in the living room stayed with him. He understood that no matter how complicated life got, he was carrying forward a sense of freedom that once existed only in a dusty attic. And the best part was that he didn't have to do it alone. A few days later, Emma surprised him by stopping by the house unexpectedly in the late afternoon. She wore a simple white blouse and jeans, her hair scooped into a messy bun. She found Michael in the kitchen, snacking on leftover pizza. "You're home early," he said through a mouthful of food. She laughed. "Yeah, class ended sooner than I thought, so I came to raid Mom's fridge. Hope you don't mind." They both chuckled, comfortable as always. Emma opened the fridge, found some juice, and poured herself a glass. She leaned against the counter, eyeing Michael. "So, big college man," she teased. "Classes start next week, right?" He nodded, finishing his slice. "Yeah, orientation's pretty much done, so I'm just waiting now." She sipped her juice, then set the glass down. "You know, once you start, you might not have as much time to hang around the attic. If you ever need anything, clothes, someone to talk to, or just a break, you can come crash at my place." He smiled gently. "I appreciate that," he said. "I might take you up on it." She tapped the counter absent-mindedly, then fixed him with a kind gaze. "I've been thinking about that first day, when I found you in the attic. I'm glad I didn't laugh or freak out, but I hope you know that I was never going to. I could see you were just trying something, and I'm glad you kept doing it. It's nice to see you come out of your shell in your own way." Michael's eyes flicked to the floor. Hearing her say it out loud made it feel monumental. "I'm glad you found me, even if I was mortified at the time." She ruffled his hair. "Well, it all worked out, and I'm proud of the person you're becoming, okay?" He felt a swell in his chest, a raw mixture of gratitude and a lingering sense of uncertainty about the future. But in that moment, he felt a powerful sense of closeness with his sister. "Thanks. I really mean it." She gave him a smile. "Well, I'm starving, so I'll make us some quick pasta. You game?" He laughed. "Sure. Need help?" "Nah, you set the table," she said, already opening cupboards. He nodded and walked to the dining area, pulling out plates, forks, and napkins. As he arranged them, he thought about how far they had come since the day in the attic. Back then, he stood teetering on the edge of embarrassment and confusion, waiting for the worst. Instead, Emma had shown him compassion, and now here they were, cooking dinner together like best friends. In the days and months to come, he knew challenges and discoveries would unfold. But there, under the warm glow of the kitchen lights, hearing water boil on the stove, he felt he had already taken one of the biggest steps of his life. With the gifts from his sister, he had gained more than just clothes. He had found a new channel for his own voice. And no matter how complicated his path might get, that steady sense of comfort he found in those hand-me-downs would always remind him of home. When the pasta was ready, they both sat down at the table, steam rising from their plates, the house still and calm around them. Emma asked him about campus clubs. He asked her about her next exam. They ate and laughed, the summer evening drifting quietly. In that simple, everyday ritual, Michael recognized how sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones that let us feel at peace in our own skin, no matter what we choose to wear.
Did you like the story? Hit that like button and tell me what you thought in the comments. Do you want to hear more stories? Subscribe and hit the bell. For exclusive content and early access, check out our Patreon. You can find the link in the description, or you can watch any of the videos shown on my right. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.